Welcome to Me Time with Mind Escape Vibe, where it is your time to be kind to your mind. Listen, lean in. My guest this week is Kyle Gillette, founder of Blue Shirt Business Coaching. Kyle helps business owners who feel like they are on an island in a state of SOS, stressed out, overwhelmed, and stuck. Shift to having more courage, confidence, and freedom than ever. Kyle is the author of Right Now Leadership, a 4-part framework for today's leader. Always an open book, Kyle provides an honest look at business, leadership, faith, and being a dad. Kyle joins me to discuss his book, its purpose, and next level success. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
I see you have a blue short shirt on, so I'm ready to ask that question. But before I do, I always like to start the show with, would you tell us something about yourself?
Sure. What do you want to know? A little bit of the background or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
unusual?
Just a little brief intro before I get into that probing question about your
Sure.
mental victory vibe celebration.
Yeah. Yeah. So I grew up in California, in the Central Valley of California, and I grew up on Orange Farm. So most people did not grow up on Orange Farm, and so I grew up there and then went to college on the Central Coast and got my degree and then played around in various careers and worked in a nonprofit for 10 years and got to mentor young men, 18 to 25-year-olds for 10 years, and then hopped up to the Pacific Northwest and got introduced to the concept and ideas of coaching and HR and DISC and all that, and dove into creating the business I have now. So that's my 30-second version of my biography, I guess, if you will.
I really like it, but what's really sticking out is the orange farm.
Yeah.
It's like the orange farm. I could really an orange farm.
Yep. Yeah, 40-acre orange farm I worked on since I was in 7th grade all the way up through my junior year of high school. And then I worked on a peach farm my senior year of high school. So, that was my experience. Yeah.
So I always like to start the show by asking all guests about their mental victory vibe celebration. And that's something that you've done for yourself lately to pour into your own cup. So, Kyle, what have you done for yourself lately?
Yeah, I love working out. And so going to the gym is something that's super rewarding for me. That's for sure. And then honestly, car rides myself are really a mental victory. So I don't know if you guys that are listening or you have heard of lo-fi hip hop or not. Have you heard of that
Yeah,
before?
I actually have.
Okay, so I listen to lo-fi hip hop in the car, and it's chill enough, but it's energetic enough that it kind of fits both worlds
Mhm.
really well together. And so I'll like make a little rap to it, or I'll just bebop to it and enjoy it. So we went on some trips this summer and had some fun, but I think it's in the little things that you get that renewal. And so I just started doing that, putting that on in my car. It's been fun.
Oh, I love it. I love it as a child. And then even in adulthood, that was a thing for my parents. They would just go for long rides. Sometimes, so we lived in Indiana, but I'd call my dad or my mom and they'd be in Michigan. And I'm like, what are you guys doing? We went for a ride. 5
Yeah,
hours?
right. That's my in-laws as well. They're on a 6-week ride right now, just cruising around the Midwest, or not the Midwest, but the Pacific Northwest. So just for the heck of
Wow.
it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the thing. It's the thing. My parents used to do it all the time.
Right.
So what's your personal empowerment theme song?
So I did a lot of thinking about this and played around on YouTube a little bit, and I had two that came to mind, and I shared them with you. But
Oh, yes.
the one that really is really empowering. The other one's just kind of inspiring, but the one that's really empowering is the Toby Mac one, which is "Help Is on the Way" is what it's called. So Toby Mac, "Help Is on the Way," and there's a vibe to it. He's actually coming to a city called Abbotsford, which is about 20 minutes north of where we live, and
Mhm.
he's huge. Like they sell out real quick, and so I think we're gonna get the whole family to go because everybody in my family listens to his music, and it's always super uplifting. So definitely recommend "Help Is on the Way" by Toby Mac.
Oh, yeah, I will definitely make sure I share it in the show notes for sure. So I just want to dive right in and tell us your backstory. I know you kind of did that 30-second pitch of it, but what really got you into the coaching ecosystem?
Yeah, I after well, in the middle of my senior year of college, I was 40 pounds overweight and covered in poison oak, living in an apartment with my best friend and two other guys, and lost, and just a complete mess. I had gone off trail with some friends on a hike and got covered in poison oak. So literally from my wrists to my ankles, I had poison oak all over my body because for whatever reason I probably had my shirt off. And then I also like decided to go pee in the middle of the trip. So I mean, it was everywhere. It was rough, and it was just this microcosm of where I was in life, just beat up and feeling terrible. And so senior year comes around and I'm going, I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself. I have no idea what I'm gonna do with myself. And I had gone on a missions trip to India with the local church there, and came back. And a guy that was on the trip with us, his name was John, or is John, and he said, "Hey, there's this men's mentoring program I think you should be a part of." I'm like, "Oh, great, sweet! I'll get some mentoring. I can get my life straightened out." And he's like, "And I think you'd be a great leader." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm all screwed up. You want me to lead these guys?" And so I ended up saying yes to the interview and going, "You know what? I can turn this thing around and all that." And so I said yes, went to the interview, and it was 20-acre ranch with a house built in 1885, old farmhouse. And I remember parking right in front of the American flagpole, walking up the concrete steps, knocking on the door, and the president of the program opens the door and shakes my hand. And an hour and a half later, we're standing, shaking hands again. And he says, "Do you want the job?"
Wow.
Like, I don't know. And so I thought about it briefly and then said yes, which meant I needed to wrap up school. I needed to get myself into a better place, get there, move out of my apartment, and then I would be living there for a year. Right. So I'd be like letting go of all of that life that I had, really, because I would need to be intensely available for these guys.
Oh,
So I said yes. And I ended up losing all the weight, running a half marathon, and really being an example to the guys for the next year. And then I ended up working there for the next roughly 9 years after that as well, or roughly 8.5 years after that. So I tell you that story because it's one of the three events in my life where they were real catalysts to get me to where I am right now. And it was one of those things where I just took the risk, or I risked, and I didn't realize what I was risking, but I risked, and it worked out. Right. So that's really the beginning of the journey for me to where I am now.
wow. Wow. So it's just like you had to walk away from everything and start over, basically just right where you were to be available for the gentleman.
Yeah, it was weird because I had great friends in college and I'm still friends with some of them. And my availability to them just went down to like 2%. And
Wow.
that's a weird thing to do when you're in your early 20s,
It
when
sure is.
most early 20-year-olds want to just go party or play or do whatever they want. And so I made a commitment that I don't know if I really realized what the commitment was. And I think I've done that a couple times since as well, but don't regret it one bit in any of the cases. So it was good. It was good, and I'm still reaping the rewards of those 9.5 years of experience there.
Wow, that sounds great. So I know you have a book coming out, and it's called Right Now Leadership. The four-part framework for today's leaders. And I really appreciate you sending me the book so I could look through it. It was a journey. I was like reading furiously to make sure because I like to read the books before I
Yeah,
sit down with the guests. So, what inspired you to write the book?
sure. Well, first of all, I have hard copies now, so that's super exciting. They came in on Monday, so it launches on Friday, September 15th. So this Friday. So I'm excited about that. But what inspired me? So when I left the mentoring program, I made a commitment to myself, to God, and to my family. I was like, okay, when we move up to the Pacific Northwest, I want to have as much of an impact on people up here in the Pacific Northwest as I did in California. And being in that program, I watched 150 students go through the program, and a lot of them turned their lives around. And so it was really huge to be a part of that in the various roles I played. And so it's kind of a big commitment I was making. And as we lived here for the first approximately 3 years, I didn't feel like I was really making that big of an impact. And then I got exposed to HR world and DISC assessments, and that led me down the path of coaching. And when I was in the coaching, I went, IP really matters. So intellectual property really matters. And then you can do whatever you want with your IP. And so I thought I need to start creating my own IP, which then ended up turning into this book, because now I can do and say whatever I want about these topics because they're mine. And I went, okay, I have all this information, all this experience, and let me see if I can put it into a book format.
Okay.
I was trying to come up with some sort of an acronym that made sense, that sticks, because I remember a lot of things via acronyms. And I literally have a sheet of paper that has 25 different acronyms on it that help me to run my business. It's like, it's kind of ridiculous.
Guilty.
Yeah, exactly. And I was trying to come up with one, and I kept on getting things like development and leadership and growth and stuff like that. But it never came out into any sort of acronym that made any sort of sense. But one morning, 3 a.m., I'm laying in bed asleep, and I'm awakened by a voice, or at least I think it was, that says self-awareness, which isn't some mind-shattering word by any means, but it was for me, because it was the word that I needed that would catalyze the rest of the Now Blue acronym. So I jumped out of bed, ran into the kitchen, sat at the table for 4 hours, and began writing what would ultimately become my framework and then this book. And that was a really, really cool experience.
So why blue shirt? As I was reading, I was like, okay, I'm trying to understand the blue shirt part.
Yeah. So blue is harkens back to my experience living on a farm, kind of the blue shirt or blue collar mentality. And I had to rename my business recently. And when I renamed it, I didn't want to pigeonhole myself into just working with blue collar folks. And so I didn't want to be like bluecollarcoaching.com or whatever, because I love working with blue collar folks, but that's actually not my predominant industry. And so I thought, well, if I just do blue shirt and play off the concept of, the brand of the shirt, and then also the idea of blue collar, then you put that together and it comes up with Blue Shirt Coaching. And then I turned blue into an acronym.
Yes, I saw that in the book as well.
Yeah.
I saw that in the book as well. What really stood out to me though, Kyle, is the 3 a.m. voice.
Yeah.
So when we started to talk about it, and when I read it, I was like, I know exactly what that voice is.
Yeah.
Except it happens for me at 4:30.
Right.
Around that time. Can you talk about that and elaborate about that voice and that self-awareness and why self-awareness is so key?
Yeah. So when I started my business, I spent a lot of time praying and trying to figure out, where am I going? Where's this thing going? How can I help? How can I serve? All those things. And so I think that was an answer to prayer. It was really God saying to me, hey, here's the word you need. And now you get to do the rest of the work. Because God, he gives us the oars, but we have to row, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're stuck in the middle of the lake, he gives us the oars, but we got to row. We can't just complain and not do any work. And so I think that's what happened. In terms of why self-awareness is so important is, if you picture a leadership house, self-awareness is the foundation of that leadership house. Without self-awareness, you cannot build leadership in any way, shape, or form in someone's life or on someone's life. And so when that word came through, I went, oh, this is what is the catalyst for any growth, any empowerment, any accountability for a leader, is they have to have that self-awareness.
I love in the book how you incorporate stories as well. I'm reading through the stories and I'm reading the lessons that I really got a lot from the book, and I'm reading the stories and I'm like, yes, that makes sense.
Right.
Like that method, do you use that method as well with your coach when you're coaching, or is that something that you just know is so relatable? I loved the stories in the book.
Yeah, well, thank you. And in my coaching, no, because most of the time in my coaching, I'm drawing them out and asking questions. But when I'm teaching or doing a workshop, then yes, I love to share stories because that's what keeps people engaged, right?
Yeah.
When you're trying to teach or speak or do workshops, the stories or the metaphors, which I also like quite a bit, draw people in because we lose interest fast, right? We get bored fast. And when you bring in a story or a metaphor and engage someone's imagination and vision, that get them to start visualizing things, that helps a ton.
Yeah, it was nice. I really liked that. I enjoyed it. And I had to turn that read around pretty quick. So
Yeah, you
I'm like
did. I'm impressed.
I was reading. I was reading and writing my notes at the same time. So what are two habits a self-aware leader should have or strive to have?
Yeah, so I mean, you're going to be familiar with all this. I mean, you could teach these lessons here because you read the book. But one of the first habits that I talk about in the book for self awareness is the platinum habit.
Mhm.
And I could test your knowledge, but I'm gonna leave you alone. So, the platinum habit is the idea to serve others the way that they want to be treated, or treat others the way they want to be treated. And it's a little bit of a twist on the golden rule, of course, but it's the idea of it ties all the way back through to empowerment, because if you treat people the way they want to be treated, they're going to be empowered. But we have to be self-aware enough of how we're treating other people to know that we're treating them the way that they want to be treated, right? So we have to be able to see how they're responding to us. Are they interacting with us in such a way that they're responsive to my gestures or my comments or my thoughts? um, I have a friend that's blind, and he goes to the same networking group that I do, and so he doesn't get his attention from other people is a little different, right? Because he can't see, and so people don't know how to treat him sometimes. And I know how he wants to be treated because I've gotten to know him. He
Mhm.
wants to be treated like anybody else. He makes fun of his blindness. He has an organization that uses his sight loss as a way to encourage people and motivate people. So he's a
Mhm.
really cool dude, and he's just amazing man. He skis, he jumps out of airplanes, like he does all this stuff that sighted people are terrified
You
to do.
missed me with the skin, boo, and the jumping out the planes, but I'll watch and wait. "Hey, how
Right.
you doing?"
So I know how he wants to be treated, and so what I do is I go up and I always give him a massage. I grab him on the shoulders and I give him like a 2-minute massage or something like that. And that's the kind of thing, when you're really self-aware, you're aware of the impact you're having on the person, but you're also aware of how that's impacting them. And then you know
Mhm.
whether what you're doing, the way you're communicating, is a fit or not. And so he's really fun to do that with. And there's other things that I do with other people that's very different, but that's just one example.
I
Second
like
thing is,
that. Oh, go ahead,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, and the second one is journaling. Real
Oh, yeah.
straightforward, simple journal. And I have 3 different types of journaling that I do. Uh,
Really?
yeah, two of them are daily and one of them's weekly. So
Okay.
briefly, the day one of the daily ones comes from a conversation with my mentor. This is like over a year ago. He was saying, I was complaining about my youngest. And so my youngest is now 7. And I was just complaining about her. And he basically said, "Shut up, dude. Do something about it." And then he had a suggestion, which was just to be grateful. Like, what are the things you're grateful
Wow.
about? And so now every day I write one thing I'm grateful for as it relates to my wife, and then one thing I'm grateful for as it relates to each of my 3 kids. And I've been doing that the whole entire year since the first of the year. And it's shifted my relationship with everyone in my family. It's been really, really powerful. So for people that are struggling with, where do I start with journaling? Or I don't want to journal. I'm a dude. I don't do that. If you want a better marriage, you want a better relationship with your kids, I would encourage you to go ahead and do some gratitude journaling. And it can just be one line.
Mhm.
Like, I really appreciate that my wife and I had a conversation last night that was encouraging to me, and she was let me open up, or whatever the line is. It doesn't matter. It's just something you're grateful for. The second journal is me just dumping my thoughts down and going, I'm frustrated with ABC. No matter whether
Mhm.
it's personal, professional, within myself, with God, it doesn't matter. I'm dumping it and I'm putting it down, whether I'm cursing or I'm crying and everything in between, it's in there and I'm just being real. But the reason that I think it's really helpful for business owners and professionals is when you put it down, it's like you're burying it and you're saying, I'm not going to hold on to this anymore. It's not mine. I'm letting it
Mm.
go. And
I
you're
think that's so
releasing.
important. You just
Yeah.
oh, yes.
Yep. So you release it. Go ahead. You go.
No, I think it's so important. I journal as well. So everything I agree. I have a gratitude journal. I have one for the day, for the week, and in my life.
Yep. Awesome. And if people are listening, they're going, well, I don't want to do either one of those things. That's fine. I get it. Let me give you a
Mhm,
third option that you can do once a week or every day if you want. It's something that I use, which is called a MOLO,
mhm,
and MOLO stands for more of, less of. And it's basically you're asking yourself 5 questions, and I do this every Saturday, um,
mhm.
bright early in the morning. Not bright now; it's dark outside. But anyway, 5:30 in the morning.
No, it's changing. The weather's changing.
It is, man. Dang it! Here comes fall. Um, so it's you ask yourself the question: what do I want to do more of? What do I want to do less of? What do I want to start doing? What do I want to stop doing? What do I want to keep doing? And the key is you need to pick just one topic. So it could be something related to your family. It could be
Mm.
something related to your business. It could be something related to a specific person in your business, a specific aspect. But the more niched you get or the more specific you get with the topic, the better. Because then you are really thinking and meditating and working on that
Mm.
specific thing instead of running around in your head with a bunch of different topics. So those are the 3 approaches. And if you're real stuck on journaling, I recommend doing the MOLO as the first step and then proceed from there.
It sounds to me like it taps into a lot of a virtue of justice, and justice leads to a lot of leadership, things that we do in a leadership perspective, fairness and teamwork. And when I talk about justice, I always pose the question, not of the blue type of justice, of the legal system justice.
Mhm.
I always pose the question, how are you showing up? What does your self care look like? And journaling, whether it's a pen and paper or it's the note section of your phone,
Right.
or maybe it's a voice memo, it affects how you show up. It
Yep.
changes the game when you actually say what's just running around in your mind.
100%. And if you have someone that you can say that to, that supports you and hears you out and hears your thoughts and doesn't judge you for them, but just is available for you, that
Mhm.
that's next level for sure. And fortunately, I've had that in my life with my dad. I had it with a mentor for 9 years, and I have it with a mentor now. And then in between in college with people I was mentoring and being mentored by. So it's just there's no way I would be where I am if it weren't for that.
So I know that you've talked about a couple of things. I want to talk about the entrepreneurial piece because you did talk about that, but you also talked about something that I really want to zero in on as well. You talked about guys saying, I don't have time. I can't do this. I can't do that. So, what advice would you have for a gentleman that's just like, dude, I ain't feeling that, but I understand. I'm not feeling that because they have to start somewhere,
Yeah.
you know? So, what would you say to them?
Yeah. I mean, what are you afraid of? Would be the
Ugh,
first question I'd ask. Like, what's going
did
to
you just call
happen?
somebody out? I wish I had a bell.
I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to grow from it. I mean, like just when you grow, when you focus on yourself. One of the things I have on a dashboard on the right side of my computer over here is a, a an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Sheets spreadsheet that breaks down the 7 areas of my life that I want to be putting my energy and focus into. Right. And I know when I'm not doing well because I'm tracking that. And a journal and other ways that we can track ourselves makes us face ourselves. And I think people in general, but sometimes some men are afraid to face themselves. They're afraid to
Mhm.
face their weaknesses or they're afraid to face their strengths. And both are true because when you're afraid to face your weaknesses, then you don't risk things. You don't go after being an imposter. right? You don't go after that feeling of what it's like to be fake. And when you're afraid to face your strengths, that means you're afraid of success, right? And if you don't go after your strengths, then you're not going to succeed. And so then you can just play small. And in both cases, you're playing small. And I'm not trying to play big like the billionaire big. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about big life. I'm talking about impactful life. I'm talking about leading your life right now, like my book talks about, the mindsets and habits of today that can make an impact right now in your life. And for those men out there, maybe it feels like scary, or what are you going to do? How do I get started? I don't care how you start. You just need to do the one thing to get started. I mean, Yoda has everybody knows the saying that Yoda has, right?
Go right ahead. Go ahead and spit that Yoda out, because I think they need to hear it.
Yeah. What is it? There is no try.
There's only do.
Yeah.
So it's funny, because the reason I asked that question, a lot of coaches that I've interacted with, even myself included, we really gear our services toward women, right?
Mm-hmm.
We gear our services toward women, broad spectrum. Our target audience, maybe their age range may be different, but it's important to throw those nuggets out there to the fellas. And when I get a fella on the podcast, I'm going to ask, because they need to hear it. And especially if my sons are listening, pick up those gems, baby. Pick up those gems. Because I have 2 sons.
Yeah. And men are way more vulnerable than they're willing to admit. And I've had the fortune of being the person that gets things dumped on as a coach, for sure, because that's what I do professionally. But prior to that, people just dumped stuff on me. Oh, I cheated on my wife, or I got cheated on, or I'm thinking about divorce, or I did this terrible thing, or this terrible thing happened to me, or I was abused, or I did this terrible thing to somebody else, or whatever. Since I was young, since I was like junior in high school, people just dump things on me. And every time it's helpful for them, right? It's helpful to have that confidant, to have that person. And if you're afraid to even talk to a person, that piece of paper can be a start, right? And then graduate. Please graduate beyond that. let's not play in the shallow end too long.
I love it. It's a great segue to an excerpt that I want to read from the book. And I chose this one. I know it's so many great gems in the book. But when I read this, one of my virtues is character strengths is persistence. It felt like the words jumped off the page. That's why I chose this one. So I want to read this so we can talk a little bit about this. It says, persistence means to continue a course of action despite difficulty or opposition. A persistent mindset is an attitude of heart and mind that understands difficulty and opposition. From day-to-day tasks to the long-range plans of your business, you find resistance. But a mindset of persistence will help you be a better leader you're meant to be and grow your business to where it's supposed to go. When I read that, I put it on a sticky note. I was like, oh, this is it. Okay. So awesome. Would you talk a little bit about those different mindsets and why is it important? Because let me tell you something. That's on my sticky note, like right here. I loved it.
Awesome. That's super encouraging. Yeah. My first business I ever ran was a personal training business. Okay. And that went really well. Like, that was super fun. It went well. It supported me when I was single, and I was able to live on that income, which is really amazing for a young 20-something-year-old at the time. And then we moved up here, and I quit that mentoring program, came up here and made a commitment to being here near my wife's family and all those things, but I didn't have a job, right? So I applied to 50 jobs over the course of 4 months while I lived in my father-in-law's house with 2 children. So you talk about feeling like a loser and feeling like a failure and feeling like I just was not qualified for anything, right? 50 applications, two interviews. One was retail that there's no way I wanted it. And the other one was working in a senior living place, which was a dumpster fire. But anyway, in all of that, I had to persist like crazy, right? I had to persist and not give up. And then working in that facility, that senior living place, that was a complete disaster as well. But I knew that there was something more. I think we're all meant to contribute. We're all meant to serve people. Because in my mind and in my heart, the only thing that we take with us when we die is our relationships. We don't take anything else with us. So the more I can serve and contribute to those around me in relationship, the better. And so for me, I'm persisting through that to try to make as deep as an impact as possible. And the book is a reflection of that, but also just all the failures and mistakes of the businesses that I've run, and then going, no, I can make this work. I can run a business. I can make it work for my family, has turned into what I have now, which is my wife doesn't work anymore. I'm running this business with her. And then I have some assistance on the outside of my business. And we have a situation that works for our family in a beautiful way.
I love what you're saying, because a lot of encouragement just came from that. For that individual that's putting in applications and trying to find work and not getting callbacks or getting ghosted, because that's the thing. Employers do ghost and they're discouraged. You just, hey, keep going.
Yep.
Keep going.
Yeah. And I literally tracked that it was 50. Like I track a lot of things, and so I'm not just random arbitrarily saying a number. It literally was 50 applications. And finally, I don't know what number the senior living place was. So I'm serious about the number for those that are listening and going, well, he's just making up a number. No, I'm not. It's a real number. And I want people to like persist. It's worth it. It's worth it. Persist. There's a author named Andy Andrews, and his phrase is to persist without exception. And so no matter what, you persist. And he has a story about bringing his books to, a bunch of different publishers and nobody accepting it. And in my book, I tell about Colonel Sanders, right? Where Colonel Sanders is like, hey, I have this fantastic recipe that I think anybody can benefit from. You can buy it from me and use it, and then I'll take a little bit of the money off of it. And nobody wanted. And I think is it the 1,000 and 1,000?
It was 1,000. It was 1,000. He had 1,000 no's.
Yeah. 1,000 freaking no's. So the 1,001st request became the accepted request, and now we all eat at KFC.
Yes.
Right?
1,000 no's.
Yeah. But here's the thing about persistence. You want no's. I want no's. We need no's, because the no means we're making progress. Because every no is feedback to learn from. And so I'm shooting for those, because that means progress. Because somewhere in between the no's is going to be a yes. But if your reward is the yes, the no's, you're going to get way more no's than yeses. And so you're going to get super knocked down from them. So focusing on, okay, what can I do to continue progressing despite the no is really important, right? Sometimes I challenge my clients to go, can you get 10 no's in the next couple of weeks as you're trying to get clients? And then they'll end up getting 3 yeses in the process. So it's this wonderful experience.
It is a great experience. It reminded me of a situation. I went to my eye doctor, and I had just started creating my aromatherapy blends. And I got these business cards. I walked in there. I was so excited, and I'm talking about my business. And my eye doctor was like, that's great. Leave me your card. Don't talk to the ladies about it in the front. That is fantastic. So I go and I hand my card to one of the ladies in the front. She looks at it and she says, the writing is too small. It's too light. I can't read it. And she gave it back.
Nice.
I kid you not. She gave it back. And instead of feeling defeated, I said, thank you for that feedback. Because I will increase the font and I will change the color so you can read it. I changed them to a rich blue. And I was like, and it was because of her feedback that I did that. She was like, no, I can't see this. The writing is too small and it is too light.
Yeah, I was on a networking call the other day, and it's this gentleman that's trying to raise venture capital support for his business that he's starting. And it's a really cool business idea. And he ran through the presentation with me because I'm not a fit for it, but he ran it through it anyway. And I'm watching it and he's talking about it. I'm like, this is crappy. It's what was going on in my head. And so I told him, I said, if you want, I asked him, is this what you're going to use to try to get angel funding or venture capitalist funding? And he said, yes. And I said, it's not going to work. I just he's, he's in his later 50s, had a lot of different businesses. We're talking like multi-million dollars worth of funding he's trying to get. And I'm like, no, this isn't going to work. I said, I know someone that'll fix it for you, but this is not going to work. And so what happened? He took the feedback, went to the person that I know. The person I know fixed it, made it look beautiful. And now he's got a presentation that probably will, because he's got great charm, probably will win him some funding. Right. And this is the type of feedback that is so powerful. And we got to be brave enough to do it. Right. We got to be brave enough to give it. I mean, we're not talking about persistence anymore, but that's part of the picture, right?
But it's that determination and bravery too, because, with bravery, that's courage. Courage is a virtue. And that bravery and persistence, all of that is in there. And sometimes persistence means someone giving you constructive feedback on where you can improve, where your target audience is, where niche down. And you're like, niche down. I can remember when I started, I was like, niche down. What does that mean? The world is my oyster. I'm going to take it all. And then I started working and I'm like, I can't do it all.
Yeah.
I can't. Yep. So that's great feedback. It's great feedback. And it just, the determination has to be there. That drive has to be there. And it's something that we all have, along with frustration and irritation, right?
Yeah, every once in a while.
It's all in how you use it. Pity party.
Right.
Or like, hey, I'm going to take this and I'm going to run with it. Let me see how I can fix it.
Yep.
It's 100%. A lot of late nights. I always say that to my girlfriends when they're like, well, what are you doing? I was like, girl, I had 2 picks in my eyes, but I got it done. So from your perspective, what is the best way for someone to reach the next level of success and have the impact that they desire?
So there's 2 studies that have been done that as it relates to goal accomplishment, because that's what we're really talking about, right? We're talking about creating some goals, going after those dreams that we have and putting a plan to them. And one of the studies is done by the American Society for Training and Development, or ASTD, and the other one is done by Michigan State. And they found an interesting correlation between accountability and goal achievement. And that correlation, the Michigan State study found that if you have, and I'll explain the process in a second here, but if you have accountability in place, a certain kind, then you'll achieve your goals at a 76%. Your likelihood of achieving the goal is 76%. The ATSD study found that it was, or ASTD, excuse me, was 95%. So somewhere in that range is where we're talking about. Either way, it's amazing, right? 3 out of 4 of the goals that you set, you can accomplish if you follow this process. So the process, when it's broken down, they tell you how it's broken down, but I've nuanced it a little bit because I think I've made it more robust. And the very short version is PASS, PASS. So it's something that I call the accountability pass. And I'll give the very brief version here because I think we're running low on time. But P stands for passive accountability, right? So whenever we go to set a goal, you first think about it, right? Everything's created twice. You think about it and then it's actually created. And so we have to think about it and then you have to commit to it. And the way you can commit to it is by sharing it with others and sharing it with your unconscious mind. So sharing it with others is easy. It's easy to explain. You just tell people. Right? Sharing it with yourself is a little different. Sharing it with yourself means, like, I want to sell 1,000 books before the end of October, right? So that's my goal. That's a lot of books, right? And can I do it? Totally, I can do it.
Oh, so okay. Because I read it. I know it's thebomb.com. I'm just saying.
It's possible, darn it. So then how do I get my brain to believe that? Because a lot of times we have self-doubt. We struggle to believe the things that we're trying to achieve. You create the story of the success as if it's already happened. And I call it future tense goals. So what do? Okay, I have a story. I kind of want to read it to you guys, but actually I'm going to. Give me a second. It won't take
Okay.
long to pull it up. It's in my, I read it every day. So I'm going to pull it up on my goals dashboard here and read it to everybody. Okay, book sales. Sitting on the plane to Phoenix, I can't help but think about how well the book has done. I've sold 1,000 books already. It's only been on sale for a month and a half, and I've already lined up several new clients, a paid speaking gig, and my mastermind group will launch in late October. I'm feeling great about all of this and excited to impact thousands of people. So that's my version of what it's going to be like in October. And so my brain says, okay, well, that's not what's really happening. So I better make that happen. Because your unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between a really good generated reality, like emotions and feelings and details, versus reality. So that creates the passive accountability, which in the studies is basically creating the goal and then committing to it. Now you got to go to the next level, which is planning it out. Right? So to plan it out, you need structures. And I'm skipping the A and pass for a second here, but you need structures. So that's your to-do list. It's real straightforward, right? Your to-do list and your calendar. Put that into place, and that's your plan. Now you're up to 50%. But the real gold is in the accountability. So that the A in pass is active accountability. So you got passive accountability, then active accountability. Active accountability is the idea that all the people that you shared your story with of being on the plane and having sold 1,000 books by the end of October, that story is shared with them, and a couple people follow up and say, you know what, that sounds pretty cool. How's it going with that goal? What's happened with it? And then you say to them, you say, okay, John, thanks for following up. Would you be willing to meet with me and talk about it on a biweekly basis? And I'll talk to you about what your goals are, and we could just exchange this goal setting session every other week. You're not going to get a no, because they first of all reached out to you. And even if nobody reaches out to you, you can reach out to them. And if you're offering that exchange, if they say no, you don't want to work with them anyway. Like you don't want to have them be accountability partner, because they're not going to follow through. But you're going to get a yes, right? So that's active. And then the last S, so structures is the first S, the last S is self accountability. And this is just the concept of when you put your hand to the plow, don't look back. Like you're committed to the thing. When you jump out of that airplane and go skydiving, you can't crawl back in. It's over. Like you've made your commitment.
Yes.
So whatever it is that you need to do or I need to do to commit to that goal that I have, to commit to moving forward in whatever way, find out the thing that makes it impossible or almost impossible for you to turn back. And you put all that together, and your likelihood of accomplishing a goal becomes 76 to 95%.
I love it. It's like a visualization meditation. You just wrote it down.
Yeah.
I visualize myself standing on the stage speaking.
Yep.
I visualize
exactly. Wonderful.
daily.
Yep.
Because
and
I'm channeling my inner Oprah. I'm not playing.
Right. And the more specific you make that, how big is the stage? How many people are you looking at? What's the lights look like? What does your heart feel like? What are you dressed in?
Oh, I have that. I know.
Yeah.
I already know. And my hair has sister locks. Okay. And I'm all dressed. I got a cute pink suit on. I got it.
Exactly.
I can tell you.
Yep. Yep. And then your brain has to fill that gap. And you don't have to work so hard to figure out how to fill that gap. You just have to trust that your unconscious mind will help you get there, and you'll have these insights. You'll grab these opportunities. Something will just come into your life because your brain is looking for it for you. And it's a really amazing and powerful thing.
So how can me timers find your book?
Yeah.
Where is it sold? Because let me tell you something. I really enjoyed it. And I read it before it was hard copy. And so I was supposed to get back to you in 24 hours. It took me a couple of days because I was reading it.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. So you can get it at Amazon and Barnes and Noble and various other retailers like that. Probably the easiest way to get to it is to go to my website, blueshirtcoaching.com/book. It's also in the top menu, but blueshirtcoaching.com/book. And then when you click that, it gives you all the retailer options and a little bit of details. And I have a video and all that kind of stuff to make it.
Okay. I'll make sure to include that in the notes. I have one final question for you though, Kyle.
Yep.
What advice would you give your younger self to cultivate self-trust?
All right. So I wrote something down. What did I say?
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah. Self-trust. Reflect. Right? We have to spend time reflecting. I need to get better at it. I do on Saturdays for sure, and then I try to on Monday mornings, and I kind of have like a quiet time as well. But it's more of a prayer time and a journaling
Mhm.
time. Reflect. What I mean is you're quiet. Maybe sit outside on a porch or sit on your deck if you have a deck, or go somewhere private. I like to be in the wilderness, so go sit down somewhere private or in a park and just sit. Don't even have a journal. Don't have your phone. Just sit and reflect. And when I say that, to help us with that, like what you would say to your younger self, is reflect on the differences you've made.
Mm.
Like, go, you know what? I'm a I'm a father. I've got 3 daughters, and people really appreciate my daughters. I'm 14 years married, and I'm the happiest I've ever. Our marriage is the best place it's ever been. And I've impacted all these people. And then all of a sudden, your like beating up of yourself shifts, and you go, you know what? I've progressed. And you stop the comparison crap too. That's a terrible journey that we put ourselves through, right? We're comparing ourselves to other people. Don't do that. Like, you can calibrate to other people and go, okay, that's a standard that I really like, but don't compare yourself, because they're a different life and different person. So my younger self needed to hear, look at what you've done. Look at the friends
Mm.
that you have. Look at the accomplishments that you've had. And when you're young, they're small, but they matter huge.
Mhm.
Right. So,
It's so important for emerging adults to hear that.
oh yeah.
So that's why I asked that question because it right now it's so many things that's immediately available to them. So that validation may come from picking up that phone and seeing, oh, did I get a like? Oh, did they like this? Oh, did I do this? But there's just so much more to it. There's just so much more to it. I love
Yeah.
that. Reflect. Be
Yeah. And
still.
can I tell you a quick story before we wrap up?
Absolutely.
So I was doing this workshop on what's called a thinking environment, and it's something that I got some training through. And essentially, a thinking environment is creating space for others to freely think without judgment, without
Yeah.
discomfort. And so I did it for a team of 20 something teachers, and I'm up front standing and telling them about how to do it. And then they go and do it. And one of the teachers was really struggling with not getting feedback, because part of a thinking environment is you don't interrupt the person
Mhm.
that's talking, and you also don't egg them on in any way. And what I mean by that is, you're not like nodding and encouraging them with the words they have to say, or the mhm, mhm, that kind of stuff. You
Mhm.
don't do that. And this lady was really struggling with that. And then she ended up committing to it and going, you know what, I'm going to commit to this process and see what it's like. At the end, I had them all reflect, and they all shared without interruption their reflections. And hers was essentially, I really struggle to think for myself, and I need other people to affirm my thinking so I can keep going. And so she realized that ultimately, for her whole life, she really hasn't been thinking for herself. She's needed validation for all of the things that she's been saying almost her whole life. That's what she admitted. And then 2 other people in the group admitted the same thing. And it was powerful. But
It
this
is
is
powerful. That
and this
I get
yeah.
chills thinking about hearing her say that.
Yeah. And so she, like, her life changed that moment when she made that realization. Her life changed in that moment because she thought it. I didn't tell her that. She came up with it herself, and it
Mhm.
changed her life. So that's what reflection can do.
Yes, I love it. So I will also post this, of course, across all social platforms, and I'm really working hard to post more on my YouTube channel. So this will be posted there. But I want to extend an open invitation for you to come back because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed our conversation, and I would also like you to consider being a panelist because I want to do panels in
Yeah.
2024. And I'm telling you, the conversation, it's going to be hard. I'm trying to figure out how I can keep this under 50 minutes with some because it's some dynamic people out there that's going to be on
Right.
the panels. And I
True.
would love for you to come and sit on the panels. I would
Yes,
love it.
that'd be awesome. Yeah, let's talk for sure.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Me Timers. You heard it here first on Me Time with Mind Escape Vibe, where it is your time to be kind to your mind. You have a great day now.